cocktail history with the Freeborn County Historical Museum, Library, and Village. Stephanie Kibler, Executive Director, along with Rachel Lilienthal, Collections and Exhibits Coordinator. And I do that every time I say your last name, Lilienthal. Stretch it all the way out. Today, we are not really doing a cocktail.
Nope.
We're featuring beer, one of the oldest drinks humans have produced, dating back 7,000 years.
Whoa, okay, I didn't know that.
This is pretty cool as the history of beer. I had not a clue. Cereals containing certain sugars undergo a spontaneous fermentation after a period of time. It has to do with wild yeasts in the air, which I don't know what yeast looks like. You know, you pour that little packet of yeast, it's little granules. I picture a microscope, and underneath, when you look into the microscope and it gets enlarged, it's like a beast from where the wild things are. Wild yeast. That's what came to my head. Wild yeasts. So it is possible that beer-like drinks actually developed independently across the world.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily from one region.
Well,
chemical tests on ancient pottery jars revealed that beer was produced as far back as 7,000 years ago in what is today Iraq.
oh wow.
So
okay.
At that time, Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia?
I got an extra O in mine.
Oh, yeah,
I
Mesopotamia.
got an O in mine. I typed that out myself.
In the Fertile Crescent?
The discovery reveals one of the earliest known uses of fermentation and is the earliest evidence of brewing to date.
Ooh.
So that's where the 7,000 years comes from, which I had no clue. You know, it makes perfect sense that grain would ferment. And,
Oh yeah. Kind of like probably how wine came about too, you know.
yes, I would kind of accidentally, I'm
Right,
assuming,
yeah.
yeah. So a 39-year-old Sumerian poem honoring Ninkasi, the patron goddess of brewing,
Oh, cool.
contains the oldest surviving beer recipe, describing the production of beer from bread made from barley.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I do have a little excerpt I was going to share from a local paper. Really not beer related, but it is kind of a fun one. In 1877, a local paper reported, Saturday and Monday will go down in the annals of Albert Lee as bloody days. The most wicked and bloody brawls took place in that den of iniquity, the Brick Saloon, which resulted in several fellows getting badly bruised.
What year was that?
1877.
Okay.
Oh, she's checking her notes, like
I
maybe
have a
she's
different
got
one.
something. Oh, okay. Which I thought, oh, were they drinking beer?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, I've got so much here. It was so hard. So they were talking, there's some talk too about historically beer actually was more of a gruel,
Oh.
like a cereal, so it was
Sure.
thicker.
Yeah.
And that fermented, and that's really how they started doing that. There's clay tablets. I spelt it wrong again. Mesopotamia. I've got an extra O again. Clay tablets indicate that the majority of brewers were likely women,
Oh, cool.
and that brewing was a well-respected occupation. Being the only profession in Mesopotamia which derived social sanction and divine protection from female deities and goddesses.
Oh, cool.
So specifically, Ninkasi, the patron goddess of brewing, Ceres, the patron demon of beer, and Siduri, who covered the enjoyment of beer.
Oh. That's really cool.
I thought that was really cool also. So I could go on and on. I mean, it talks about the Industrial Revolution and how that, you know, added to the beer being made. Talks about the, how beer has stayed, many countries have kept their recipes traditional. So that's why you get Belgian beer and Irish beers.
Sure.
They've got those traditional long-standing recipes specific to their regions.
Cool.
Unbroken brewing traditions is what they were calling them. In the steam engine also played a role in 1765 with the industrialization of beer. That's actually when it became a reality. So 1765 was when beer was getting more easily available and being produced more. In the thermometer being invented in 1760 and the hydrometer in 1770 allowed more control over the process.
Oh,
So
sure.
it became more consistent and more knowledge on how to brew a good beer. Prior to Prohibition, there were thousands of breweries in the United States, mostly brewing heavier beers than what the modern U.S. beer drinker.
That makes sense.
In 1920, most of the breweries went out of business, although some converted to soft drinks. And I meant to look, because I'm trying to remember which one. Was it RC Cola? Would that have been around in the 1920s?
I don't know.
There's one I've seen something like a show on how it converted from beer to a soda. Bootleg beer was often watered down
Sure.
to increase the profits, beginning a trend still ongoing today of the American markets heavily advertising the weaker beers and keeping them popular.
Oh,
I don't care for the
Okay.
weaker beers.
I'm not usually fond
I
of
like
those either.
flavor in my
Yeah,
beer.
right.
Which brings me to, I'm smelling mine right now. So I did a flight, because it's hard to just pick one beer that's your
Sure.
favorite. If I'm at the ballpark, the Sweet Child of Vine, which is a Fulton beer brewed here in Minnesota. Minnesota Twins
Oh, you're
is where I
giving
can
me
get.
taste. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a flight. Have you ever had a flight of beer?
No.
I love a flight. The
Oh,
112 does
I
flights.
totally have had one at State Fair.
Mm-hmm. So this is an India Pale Ale or an IPA.
Okay.
I love this one. Plus, it's got the quippy name, Sweet Child of Vine.
Yeah, I like that. See, my sister-in-law hates IPAs because they tend to taste soapy, but this one
Oh.
isn't. This
You
one's
got to
pretty
get the
good.
right IPA.
Yeah.
So that's my ballpark favorite.
Ballpark, that would be good at a ballpark.
My lawn mowing favorite, a Blue Moon,
Blue Moon.
which is the Belgian style wheat ale.
Okay.
And so my understanding is traditional Belgian brewing.
I like Blue Moon.
A lot of times we'll see them serve this with an orange.
Oh.
An orange really does add to it.
Mhm. This like restaurants, I like to get a Blue Moon when I'm
And
at a restaurant.
I have songs flashing in my head. So Sweet Child of Mine,
Mm-hmm.
which was sung by
No.
Guns N' Roses.
I was gonna say Destiny's Child. But
Guns
that's
N'
very
Roses.
wrong.
This brings me to, I can't think of her. Well, I think of that one too, but that wasn't the one that pops in. It's a lawn mowing song.
Oh really?
It'll come back to me now. You sang Blue Moon and I
I'm
lost
sorry. I covered it up.
it. This is one I haven't tried, and you've just informed me you can't have
Can't
because
have
she's
that one.
allergic to peanut butter. But it is a milk stout, and Left Hand Brewing makes the best milk stout. The raspberry milk stout, which I'm obsessed with,
Oh.
that's a beer I could drink at any time, any place, with any food item, is so good. But this is their peanut butter milk stout, and you probably can't even smell it. Oh, I'm telling you guys.
Telling me.
So this is a dark beer because it's a stout. You can't really see. I don't want to tip too far, but the smell of this one is fantastic.
Do you have more of those cups? I could give you a little one of mine too.
Oh yeah, they're in the tall cabinet. I do recommend this one. It's perfectly peanut buttery and chocolatey, which sounds weird for a beer, but that's really good. So after World War II, there was a huge consolidation of American brewing industry. Brewing companies would buy their rivals solely to get the customers and the distribution systems, shutting down the brewing operations. And so that's when the big brewers, Miller, Coors, those types of brewers came into play.
Sure.
As they pushed out a lot of the small brewers. So between 1870 and 1895, there were a number of firms. The number of firms fell by 46%
Oh.
in the 1800s. average brewery output rose significantly. I think this means World War I. As late as 1877, only 4 breweries topped 100,000 barrels annually. By 1895, the largest 16 firms had greatly increased their capacity and were brewing over 250,000 annually.
Wow.
So that's huge.
Yeah, especially like right before like the 18th Amendment.
And this continued in the late 1970s and early 80s, like I said earlier, before Prohibition, there were 2,000. It dropped off, and by 1893, there were only a few hundred in the U.S. However, in 2020, there were nearly 9,000 breweries located in the United States, increasing steadily each year since 2012, and they include craft, large craft, and non-craft breweries. I gotta think most of the expansion, though, has been with the craft breweries. I mean, you see, I don't know, Minnesota used to have a grain belt. It was brewed here. But now in that same neighborhood where Grain Belt was, is Fulton, Modest, First Draft, Free House, and then you get a little further and there's probably another 5 or 6 just within a few blocks. So I think most of that's the craft brewers.
Yeah, I would think so.
Which that's where you're gonna get these kind of beers and not.
Sure. I don't have access to my favorite beer. I would say my favorite beer right now is probably Red Horse, and that's in the Philippines. It's really good. It's really
strong.
strong.
Make that trip?
But no, it's really good. But then my next one is this Alaskan Amber, and here's a little one of that.
I do like an amber too.
This one, see, I haven't been terribly fond of too many ambers, but this one, if it's in my fridge and there's another beer in there, I'll go to this one first.
That's a really good amber.
I really like this one.
So Alaskan Amber.
Alaskan Amber. Yeah.
Where did you purchase yours? We should.
This one I got at Hy-Vee here.
Okay, and that's
Here
where
in
these
Albert
3
Lee,
came
Hy-Vee.
from also. I was really happy they have a small buy by the bottle section. This one you had to buy the 6-pack, but these were by the bottle. That's
I'm so
really
sad
good.
because this is the first time I've had this out of a can. Because I always get the bottle, but they just recently discontinued the bottle and are now only selling the cans.
It's very good.
It is good.
Yeah, I like that. I got another one out of the newspaper for you. Liquor created problems in 1892. A Clark Street saloon keeper threw a man out of his place. This set off a big fight, which drew a crowd of 200 to 300 spectators. The big crowd made it difficult for the law to get to the fighters. The fighters were fined $15.
And that was 92?
1892.
Okay.
Albert Lee had 13 saloons.
Wow. I have one from 1895.
Okay.
This one resulted in a death.
Oh.
And it was one of the big cases that helped push them towards their prohibition and getting that more fully into the culture here and stuff.
Okay.
And it was pretty close after Henry Kriegler, who, he was the first murder.
First murder and first hanging.
First and only hanging
Yeah.
in Albert Lee in Freeborn County. And this one is considered manslaughter.
Okay.
What happened here, it's the Carberry case. About 6 o'clock in the evening, August 17th, 1895, when Clark Street was, quote, thronged with citizens.
It's on Clark Street also. I get now why you went.
I know. A man rushed into the street from the rear of Staunch's saloon, pursued by another who overtook him in the middle of the street, where the fatal assault was witnessed by a large number of passerby. So Thomas Carberry was the assailant and John Gillen the victim. They were both comparative strangers in the city, although Carberry had a family who lived there a short time, while Gillen had never made his home here and was a mere transient visitor. So Carberry and Gillen, in company with 2 or 3 others, had been drinking beer.
See, I couldn't find any reference to beer.
There's only 2 in our big book, 1884.
Okay.
1884 big history book. There's only 2 references to beer. word beer happens there twice, and the first one I'm pretty sure is a typo. So
Was it supposed to be bear?
I don't know. I could not tell in the. I was trying to go through the context. I'm like, I don't know what they're trying to say. But it was under the staunch shed during the afternoon, and a quarrel ensued. And it is believed that others took hand, and Carberry wasn't the only assailant here. But in spite of the most rigid investigation, and owing either to the reluctance or intoxication of those who might have cleared up the mystery and revealed the whole tragedy, the state was never able to secure any satisfactory history or explanation of what just occurred. And it appeared conclusively that one blow was struck in the street, and that with what they call a naked fist, and no weapon of any kind was used. But in spite of the absence of a weapon, eyewitnesses testified that Gillen, or Gillen, it's a Gill.
I would go with Gillen.
Gillen, when struck, involuntarily doubled up like a jackknife and was unconscious when picked up and lived but a short time.
Oh.
And the autopsy showed that the skull was fractured.
Wow.
So it said a top of the cranium could not have been the result of that single blow to the gut. So they're thinking that possibly inside he was hit with something before going out into the street.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah. And so Carberry was indicted.
I know. And why is there a C
I
in
don't know.
indicted?
That's what I was
Yes.
in December of 1895, tried in 1896 January, and it lasted 3 days, which resulted in guilty of manslaughter.
Did he do jail time then? Does it say?
He received a sentence of 5 years in the penitentiary. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
that was had much to do with Albert Lee voting dry at the following
I'm
election.
sure it would. Yeah, that would be something that would.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
Real close to the 18th Amendment coming about, all of those things happening at that turn of the century.
Sure.
Yeah.
Temperance and prohibition.
Yep. Which
All
I
that
have
fun
more
stuff.
on Glenville.
Well, okay, you do that because then I've
Okay.
got a little Norse
Okay.
mythology for you.
Okay, so the sale of alcohol under pant legs and hidden in the shoes of sellers is why they call them bootlegging.
Oh, I love that.
Great.
So if I put a flask in my,
You're a bootlegger.
I'm a bootlegger.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but
Maybe we'll have bootlegging days.
that'd be fun. But in 1910, in Glenville, here in Freeborn County, several young ladies joined the Young Women's Christian Temperance Union.
Which we've talked about before.
And in 1940 time, people were reminiscing about and kind of like laughing with each other about how they would see that group of women cross the street if they were going to pass by a saloon.
Oh,
cross
they
the
were loyal
street.
to their cause.
Right.
Oh.
If they saw somebody they knew was a drinker, they would be.
Well, that's a.
No, that's a little. Oh, come on.
I'm not going to give an awe for that one.
Yeah. But once prohibition started and bootleggers would be, mixing up their moonshine in the dark of night.
Popping it in their boot.
Yep. There was a 43% proof alcohol that was made from potatoes and wood chips.
Well,
that they
now,
sold.
okay, think about it. You're making a face, but think about it. We grill with wood chips. So, like apple wood chips give kind of that really nice aroma. What else? Oak has a certain smell.
I mean, the smell, sure.
A spruce. So, if you're,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I could see it giving a little flavor. Not like you were drinking wood chips.
Okay, that's true. William Bickle of Glenville was known to favor a tall glass of aquavit or wood alcohol. McKinney Gringo, a cattle buyer, and Jimmy Gohan kept their alcohol side business active into the late 1940s because Freeborn County was still a dry county and permitted only the sale of beer with a 3.2 alcohol percent, which was called 3.2 beer until the 1950s.
It's still called 3-2.
Well, okay,
So when you go into, at least, I'm not sure if they've changed this law, when you would go into like a quick trip to buy beer,
Yeah.
that was 3.2. They could not sell.
So do all of these not pass? Well, that one doesn't. That's a 6.2. Mine's a 5.3.
That's a 5.4. No, a 3.2 beer is
That's really
I'm gonna guess like your Miller Lights aren't even a 3.2 beer until they produce a 3.2 beer to sell. But there was some talk at the legislature around the same time they were talking about letting liquor stores be open on Sundays, about removing the 3.2 rule, and I don't know if they did that. You had to have a liquor license to sell anything above a 3.2.
Wow. Oh, well, I guess that makes sense.
So I don't know if they've changed that or not, though.
And this is kind of sad. This is my last thing that I have, but in December 7th, 1922, L.B. Thorpe and W.M. Stein were killed 3 miles north of Glenville when the car in which they were riding crashed at the Lutheran Cemetery curve on Jefferson Highway. 65 gallons of alcohol was found in the wreckage.
Oh dear, that's a lot of alcohol. So they were out making deliveries on the Jefferson Highway, which was the first surface, not paved, surface, the first surfaced highway in the United States. It runs from New Orleans to Canada, or Canada to New Orleans, and it's called, what do they call it? The Pine to Palm.
Oh.
So here in the U.S. we called it the Jefferson Highway.
Yeah.
Canada calls it the Pine to Palm.
I mean, that makes sense. The trees. Yeah.
And that's part of their logo. Their original logo had a pine and a palm.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, pretty cute.
Okay, tell me about
Okay, little Norse
mythology.
mythology before we go, and I'm going to butcher my
Oh, no.
Norwegian names.
I'll help.
As a Norwegian, I'm going to butcher the names. In Norse mythology, the sea god Erger, his wife Ran, and their 9 daughters brewed ale or mead for the gods. In the Lokasina, it is told that Ergar would host a party where all the gods would drink the beer he brewed for them. He made this in a giant kettle that Thor had brought. So in our red shed, we've got this huge copper pot that we were thinking lutefisk, but all of a sudden I'm thinking, maybe it was beer. And maybe it's the kettle that Thor had brought.
Both is good.
The cups in Erger's hall were always full, magically refilling themselves when empty.
See?
Erger had 2 servants in his hall to assist him, Eldir, fire kindler, and Fimafeng, handy.
I like that.
I like that too, being Norwegian.
Well, that makes me think, like, I feel like I need to take one of these cups and, like, throw it down and say another. You haven't seen that movie, have you?
I don't know what movie we're talking about.
Thor.
Thor.
In Thor.
God of Thunder.
Yes. You know that. In the movie, the Marvel movie, he has a drink that he likes at breakfast when he comes to our world here. And he likes it, and so he takes it, smashes it on the ground, and says another.
And thinks it's just gonna poof. Is that the deal? It's part of that.
I'm guessing they just would always
Ever
just
filling?
bring it.
Ever
Yeah, 'cause
filling.
they don't have to worry about anything
Yeah.
going to waste. It's always filling.
You're gonna have to relook at that movie. Maybe there's a reference to Ergar.
Maybe. Probably.
Well, I'm gonna sip my peanut butter. Cheers.
Cheers for before.